Hi everyone, here's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and the most anticipated event for World of Tanks is finally confirmed to be coming back. That's right, Frontline will be returning next month, but Wargaming have made dramatic changes, very bold changes to one of the player base's favorite game modes. To know exactly what they've done, instead of reading through all of the article here, they've presented it in a great video format, and of course, if you want to see it without my terrible commentary, then you should go and check it out on your region's World of Tanks YouTube channel. But before I give my opinion on these dramatic changes, let's watch what they are presenting. All right, Wargaming, so take it away. What do you have for us?
The largest scale game mode has been revamped and is coming back to World of Tanks. The
Finally!
mode will become more diverse while keeping its main principles. This is still that long 30v30 battle, where the attackers need to capture the points of the defenders and destroy their large caliber gun turrets in the end. As before, respawns and combat reserves will be available.
Respawning
with
being one of the most popular parts of the event.
The new Frontline will be closely connected to Battle Pass. You will be able to earn Battle Pass points for both reaching new Frontline tiers and performance in battles. And the main new feature has to do with vehicle tiers.
This is the scary one.
Let's talk about things that will make the mode even more interesting.
Okay, so one thing that's very interesting for me is that Wargaming are immediately not wanting to talk about the main feature of Frontline, that Tier 9 vehicles will be playable in it. And they kind of push this back until the end of the video because they want to show you all of the things that they've changed that I guess the player base is going to be a lot more accepting of.
Frontline combat reserves are one of the main mode mechanics that allow you to inspire your teammates and hide them from enemy fire, as well as spotting the enemy and causing more damage to opponents. 3 new reserves have been added.
Okay, so we've got 3 new reserves. We've got Minefield, Sentinel, and Field Repairs. More on that
ones have been reworked.
In a second.
Increasing Frontline tiers doesn't improve the reserves anymore.
Okay, so this is a big change. Wargaming are now making it so that you can't upgrade the levels of your combat reserves. I.e. previously, I think you could get all of your combat reserves up to level 5, and your Frontline tier that you got through grinding through the game mode would make them more powerful. You're still going to be able to level them up, just in a slightly different way.
The points are spent to unlock access to them. All reserves are divided into 3 categories.
So we have attack reserves, recon reserves.
Reserves provide direct fire support.
Tactical reserves.
Airstrike and artillery strike were adapted for a new format, but their principle remains the same. The first is designed to counter fast vehicles, while the second works better against armor.
Well, now that they've nerfed artillery so much, I think that the importance of those 2 reserves are going to be more than ever, right? They're definitely one of the more controversial parts of Frontline. Nobody really liked the fact that all of the airstrikes and all of the bombards would happen at the same time, for example. It felt like there was like a second in the battle of Frontline where everybody's reserves came off cooldown and suddenly it was like an actual war zone.
The third new reserve is Minefield.
Wow.
It's similar to the Minefield from Steel Hunter,
okay,
but exists on the battlefield for a longer time. Mines stun
a longer time than Steel Hunter. I don't know about you, but in Steel Hunter, they last for at least about 30 seconds, I'd say. So for them to last longer inside Frontline, gosh, that's going to be pretty wild. Mines are always something that the World of Tanks player base has talked about since the release of the game. Could we have mine layers in World of Tanks? It seems to be something that people really want to do. It's something that I've kind of enjoyed that there hasn't been in World of Tanks, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing how the player base will react to minefields and the kind of clever places that people are going to put them inside Frontline 2021.
And cause damage. Their use
so they're
is
stunning,
only
so you're going to have to use your
tactics,
med kits for them.
Holding off the enemy, control of important areas, or cutting off escape routes.
Ooh.
The allied mines are highlighted with a marker.
I hope that they're visible from far.
You, and you can't damage them.
Okay, so you can't mine your
allies. Are seen when within a 50-meter.
Can you imagine the kind of griefing there would have been in World of Tanks if you could have mined your allies? And also, we've just seen that you can see the enemy minefields when you get within 50 meters of them. So that's literally the spotting circle. That's going to be enough to realize, oh gosh, I'm in a minefield, probably don't want to drive through it, but you're still not going to be able to see far enough to change your maneuvers before you're literally facing in a bit of impassable terrain, or a terrain that you're going to pass through stunned, tracked, and damaged.
Radius. You can destroy them with a shot, airstrike, artillery strike,
Very
or your
cool.
own mines. Both
Yeah, but the thing is that people really aren't going to do that. Do you know why people most likely aren't going to do that? Because it probably isn't going to reward experience. It isn't going to reward your ability to progress up through the ranks, to be able to get more experience, more credits at the end of the battle, and also to be able to unlock, as we're going to find out, more of the reserves later on in the battle. I very much doubt somebody's going to want to use their minefield to clear a minefield unless it's absolutely essential to get to a cap circle. They're probably going to be wanting to use it to generate experience or to win engagements for them.
Both minefields will be destroyed in this case. To do so, you need a direct hit. You can spot the markers over the enemy mines with the help of Sentinel and Recon Flight. Recon Reserves.
Very cool. So Sentinel is the new one that they're going to be talking about in a second.
And one new one. Smokescreen has become more useful. Previously, it improved concealment and limited the view range of any tank inside it. Now, Smokescreen will cover the allies without any penalty to view range.
That's massive. That basically means that you're going to be creating bushes that your allies will be sitting in. That is incredibly wild, because that will mean you can sit in a smokescreen and be able to spot everybody at a distance. So you could place it on yourself, and it would actually be quite advantageous to conceal your position and to stop the enemies from coming in and taking in one of the cap circles, for example.
While the enemy will receive penalty to view range without a bonus to concealment. Now it's important to know which smokescreen are you in, allied or enemy. You can tell them apart by the color of the smoke.
I like that idea. I think that smokescreen was one of those things that was very specific to placing it purely when you wanted to take a cap circle and to deny the enemy's vision into it, but you also hampered your ability to be able to fight back against your opponents. I think it will be very much more powerful now for a variety of tank classes, and considering that I believe that if you smoke screened your allies that you've got assistance points, I'm not sure, that's what I felt, then it'll be very much more very competitive reserve compared to what it used to be.
The Recon Flight Reserve works as before and can now detect enemy mines.
Useful.
And the new reserve.
Did you see how many mines were there? That is actually disgusting when I think about it. Oh my goodness gracious. Imagine the enemy setting it up like that and just creating whole new levels of camping. I guess artillery are going to have to clear the mines for you with splash shells, or alternatively, you're going to have to fire high explosive shells at them if you even take them in your tank anymore, because they're so useless, right?
And the new reserve is Sentinel. It passively improves view range.
One thing I'd like to clarify about this, do you notice how Sentinel, it's not a light tank sitting in a bush. It's a Borsig sitting in a bush. Does Wargaming think that the Sentinel is going to be for tank destroyers rather than for light tanks? We'll have to take a look. So we're finding out that it progressively improves view range during the whole battle.
During the whole battle, activating it for more than half a minute will make you an ideal scout.
So you have to activate it for half a minute before it's going to have a big effect?
During this time, a vehicle that is stationary for several seconds receives a bonus to concealment, spots minefields in a wide radius,
cool,
and gives you the Commander's Vision system feature that decreases enemy concealment.
Wow, that's huge. The Commander's Vision system, as everybody knows, is now probably the most important piece of equipment on high-tier light tanks. So for you to be able to use that, I guess not only on light tanks now, and on tank destroyers, Wargaming is suggesting, very much so with the icon, you are going to be able to see your opponents moving or sitting in bushes way easier with a tank destroyer.
The last category is Tactical Reserves. Now, if you use Inspire, it gives you a greater bonus than to your allies around you.
Well, it was very much a good bonus already to yourself, let alone to your allies around you. Inspire something that increases all of your crew skills, and I'd say it's probably one of, if not the best reserves, especially for an auto-reloader. When you put it on a Progetto 46, for example, it actually lowers your reload time to a point where you can almost just fire and then reload, fire, reload, and get your opponents down to that sweet spot where then you can use the auto-loading capacity to be able to finish them off so much better.
Boost to the skills and perks of crews of the allied vehicles will remain the same.
Okay.
But the bonus for a player who uses this reserve will increase significantly.
For real, they're actually buffing Inspire's effect on you individually? That is huge. That was one of the best crew skills previously, and I'm sure now, in its buffed, selfish form, is going to be even better.
Engineering still increases the speed of capturing bases and the effectiveness of block and capture. However, it no longer provides accelerated recovery of vehicles on resupply points. Now, a new tactical reserve is responsible for that.
They brushed over engineering. That was literally the most important thing to have on a variety of your vehicles, especially your light tanks for taking cap circles early, or alternatively, defending against the enemy cap. If you had engineering at level 5, you could literally block the cap completely if you're inside it and massively slow down the game while also reaping yourself tons of experience and progressing up the ranks inside the battle. Now let's hear about field repairs, which is the new combat reserve.
Field repairs accelerates repair in special zones.
Not very exciting.
Using this reserve restores a part of vehicle's hit points within a few seconds.
Very exciting.
Also, the activated...
Oh my word. So they're basically taking the repair functionality from not from Frontline. This is Frontline. From Steel Hunter and putting it into Frontline. Oh, I'm not sure what I think about this. I feel as if having set places where tanks could repair themselves so you could be able to still have that kind of one-on-one World of Tanks engagement was arguably better. Now people are going to be able to maybe lull you in and then suddenly repair, and then you have to attack, or they're just going to come out, take a couple of shots, then pull back and then repair themselves. I have to see what kind of a cooldown it's on and how much healing it's doing, but it looks like it's actually doing a substantial amount of healing to this Pantera, for example.
Reduces the damage from minefields.
That's cool.
The active field repairs can't be interrupted by causing damage to the...
Look at this Progetto managing to just plow through this minefield, and their hit points are going up at the same rate as they're going down. Let's actually watch that again. Let's just watch that. Let's just focus on the Progetto. So he's at 1,450, 165 and a heal, 321 and a heal, 503 and a heal, but he's down to 999 by the end of it. So it still looks like it does significant damage, but that'll be very cool for pushing through those minefields when you don't have another reserve to be able to do so.
In a way that suits the gameplay of each vehicle type.
So this is interesting.
Instead of a different number of slots, all vehicles will have 3 slots.
So this is one of the big ways that Wargaming balanced out tanks. In the very first version of Frontline, which I don't know, was it 2018? Probably. Wargaming actually allowed all vehicles to have 3 combat reserve slots, which made light tanks incredibly powerful, because in a light tank you take engineering, you take inspire, and then probably something like an airstrike to slow people down, or you could take a smokescreen to be able to conceal your position. Wargaming realized that light tanks were arguably too powerful, and so they reduced the amount of slots that they had to a single slot. Now all of the vehicles are going to be able to have 3 slots again, so I'll be very interested to see how they're going to try and balance out the different classes.
Each for a separate category.
So it's a separate category for each of your slots. So don't think you can take 3 of the defensive ones, or you can take artillery strike and you can take an airstrike, for example. You're going to have to take different reserves. Oh, it's going to be choices. That will definitely be an advantage for players who have a lot of different tanks, and especially, for example, a player who has a guard and an STG. You could have one STG set up with a certain reserves loadout, and you could have the guard set up with another one. But then again, are you really going to have 2 different crews to be able to put in those 2 tanks? Yeah, this is definitely going to be an advantage for players who have deep pockets and a lot of different premium vehicles.
Select 1 attack, 1 recon, and 1 tactical reserve. All players will start the battle with 1 reserve. You will get access to other reserves and improve them right in battle as you progress through rank.
So this is incredibly interesting, because Wargaming are effectively hardlining tank destroyers, light tanks, and self-propelled guns to having one of the recon abilities at the beginning, and then only allowing them to have the mobility or the damaging ones later on. So light tanks are no longer going to be able to take engineering and rush the cap circle at the beginning of the game, or alternatively, they're not going to be able to take engineering and defend against the cap circle at the beginning of the game, which was definitely one of the most important things to do. It looks like the only tanks that are going to be able to cap early are going to be medium tanks. So this is how effectively Wargaming are balancing out the different slots, and they're preventing most of the tanks, apart from mediums, from being able to have that early level engineering to try and get a quick cap.
The order of unlocking reserves depends on the vehicle type. For example,
I'm not sure what I think about this, by the way. This kind of forces your tank to play a role rather than you being able to actually choose how you want to play a tank. Not keen on that system.
heavy tanks will only have an attack reserve at the start. Then they'll unlock a tactical reserve, and at last, a recon reserve. Main reserves for light tanks, SPGs, and tank destroyers are recon reserves, while tactical reserves will be the priority for medium tanks. The maximum level of reserve depends on their order. The first and main reserve can be improved to level 3, the second to level 2, and the third will remain in its basic state.
Wow, this is possibly the biggest change in the whole of Frontline. And this is that you will not be able to get your personal reserves up to max level in some of your tanks, even for the entirety of the battle. So this is actually pretty crazy because, for example, let's say you're playing in a Jagdtiger. You know, you want to play one of those super heavy tank destroyers. Maybe you want to be able to repair yourself because you don't have the speed to be able to get back to one of the repair depots. So surely field repairs sounds like it would be the dream for a Jagdtiger, right? Well, sucks to be you because you're not going to be able to get field repairs even at level 1 until you've reached rank 3 inside the battle. And you're not even going to be able to upgrade it to level 2 or level 3, even if you were to become a general. This kind of feels as if those heavy tank destroyers are going to be significantly screwed over, forced to, I don't know, take a smoke screen or a sentinel, which clearly aren't going to be as useful as on something like a Scorpion G, which wants to sit in the bush, have the view range, be able to spot its opponents, and be able to get those ambush shots off. It also seems a bit crazy to me that light tanks, which I felt that were some of the best for taking the cap circles, are never actually going to be level 3 efficient with regards to their engineering at being able to defend against the enemy cap, or alternatively be able to take the enemy's cap circle. So effectively this means that the only tank class that is going to be able to get engineering up to level 3 are going to be medium tanks, and only when they get to the major rank before they get general. I know some players out there who never managed to get general, so I guess they're never going to be as good at capping as all of those filthy unicorns who are driving around with all of their premium tanks, getting the levels up early and then being crazy at capping in the latter part of the game, or alternatively defending against the cap. While I can see what Wargaming are planning with making changes like this, they want to try and make certain reserves stronger for certain classes of tanks, because obviously they felt that light tanks shouldn't be able to be so influential with taking an enemy base. But it does seem so bizarre to me that at a time when Wargaming just showed us field modifications a month ago, that inside Frontline, which was one of our favorite game modes, they're now kind of pushing us down a funnel and forcing us to conform and not be able to play in a way that we wanted to. And I think it's a real big oversight by Wargaming to not realize that within each of the classes of their game, there are some very different subclasses of tanks that would definitely prefer to use other reserves.
This way, the reserves will underline the specific features of different vehicle types and provide them with everything they need for effective actions in battle. However,
I think that's Wargaming's marketing department basically trying to not let us realize that they think that certain reserves are too powerful for certain classes of tanks, and so that they're effectively removing your ability to use them.
However, players make the final choice.
Well, not really Wargaming. You say players make the final choice and decide what reserves to take into battle. Well, that's not really true, is it? Because a tank destroyer isn't going to be able to get the tactical ability until they've reached level 3. Quite often, the battle is already decided by then, and it might be too late to have your impact. Or, for example, light tanks aren't going to get engineering above level 1 even when they've reached the end game. Wargaming clearly don't want certain personal reserves on certain types of tanks. So I'd say the system is even worse than it was before with regards to your ability to customize your
and
tanks.
Decide what reserves to take into battle.
As long as they're in the category that Wargaming want you to.
The reworked reserves will unlock many new solutions and tactics.
No, there'll be less.
Next new feature will change the rule of the game even more.
This is the scary one.
An addition to the Frontline vehicle ranks.
Tier
In the new
9.
Frontline format, There will be a test opportunity to play in Tier 9.
I love the way they're presenting it as a test opportunity. A test opportunity. So even Wargaming don't know whether this is the right thing. The fact that they say it's a test opportunity leaves me with some hope that at least Wargaming realize how controversial this is probably going to be.
9 vehicles.
They know how controversial it is as well because they put it at the end of the video.
Not from the start, but as the battle progresses. All players start the battle in Tier 8 vehicles. When the attacking team captures at least one base on the second line, Tier 9 vehicles will become available to all participants in battle at the same time when respawning.
This is crazy. So basically, when you've either taken D, E, or F on either of the maps that are available, then that means that everybody's going to, hold their H key, you know, the one that destroys your tank, and then load in Tier 9s. There is so much to hate about this. Firstly, one of the key reasons why people loved Frontline was that they could play against equal tiered tanks. There weren't any higher tier vehicles. As soon as you put Tier 9 in, it's now going to be a scramble for people to go and jump into those Tier 9 tanks to remain competitive in the battle. Wargaming are also going to allow vehicles like the Concept 1B to be playable inside Frontline. Yeah, good bloomin' luck if you're in a Tier 8 tech tree tank that's maybe trying to unlock that last module, which is why a lot of people also loved Frontline, because they could play their stock Tier 8 tanks to be able to grind through it without getting victimized by a Tier 9 overpowered reward vehicle on the enemy team. While undoubtedly you will still have the option to continue playing your Tier 8s, but you're going to have to do so when there's a whole bigger and better tier of tanks that's trying to stop you from doing so.
At the same time when respawning, any player whose vehicle has been destroyed will be able to give a new lease on life to their team.
A new lease on life to their team, but also have to deal with the enemy's lease of life on their team.
Changing vehicle tiers during battle will give the defenders a chance to regroup and counterattack.
Changing vehicle tiers will allow the defenders to regroup and counterattack. What stopped them from doing that before, when they could have changed their vehicles to maybe something that's more defensive towards the end of the game? You don't want engineering once they're attacking your turrets, for example. You want to be in something that can grind out those fights. We don't need Tier 9 to be able to do that. Wargaming are going to say that they are going to
increase the diversity and intensity of battles and
increase the intensity and diversity of battles. See, here's the thing. You don't increase diversity by just putting in something that's better. All that does is forces people to choose the better thing. Diversity in video games is only something that's useful when you actually have a choice and there isn't just a flat out better tool for the job. There's absolutely no doubt that if you want to remain competitive, you're going to have to not only have Tier 8 tanks, you're going to have Tier 9 tanks, and you're going to have to jump out your Tier 8 tanks as soon as you can after the second line of defensives have been breached, because you can be sure there are going to be Concept 1Bs and AE Phase 1s coming for you, even if you don't.
Add more depth and intrigue. It will also unlock a new use for tanks received for Expedition and Battle Pass.
That's really what Wargaming want to do, right? They want you to have to go and get all the Tier 9 tanks from the Battle Pass so you can remain competitive in one of the game modes that the community embraced more than any game mode in World of Tanks. Do Wargaming truly feel that just because Frontline was a success last year and the year before that, and pretty much every year that we've had Frontline, that they can make such a risky play and try to micromanage to force you to have other vehicles to just remain competitive within it? I guess Wargaming have just pushed selling us Tier 8 premium tanks as far as it can possibly go, and the Tier 9 reward tanks might be the first step in the line towards what might eventually be Tier 9 premium tanks going into the game.
You can rent Tier 9 vehicles just like Tier 8s.
Just good luck renting a Tier 9 vehicle and having to play that against some of the reward tanks. It's going to be the equivalent of renting a T-44 and playing it with a terrible crew and going up against a Progetto on the enemy team.
Vehicles are available from the first stage. You can rent the vehicles for credits, while 2 more Tier 9 vehicles will be given for free for reaching new Frontline tier.
So it looks like you get a Patton and you get a Conqueror just for advancing up the frontline tiers. So at least if you're a new player, you're going to have an opportunity to be able to get your hands on some tier 9 tanks, which is pretty cool.
The frontline garage will be respectively divided into 2 tiers.
That's a cool UI. I like that.
And equip the vehicles of both tiers.
Do you know what's really annoying about this, however? Is that I'm going to have to set up all of my tier 9 tanks without premium consumables so that the battle doesn't get very expensive. So for the next, for every frontline, I'm going to have to remove all of my pay-to-win consumables off my tier 9 tanks so I don't accidentally use them inside the game mode.
However, if your goal is to earn as many credits as possible,
which it is, let's be honest, for the majority of players. Players love Frontline to make loads of credits, and Wargaming clearly know that, otherwise they wouldn't be presenting that point here.
You can fight the whole battle on Tier 8 premium tanks.
You could do, but there are going to be Tier 9 tanks that are going to be bludgeoning you on the enemy team, so there's no doubt this is a massive nerf for everybody who wanted to just play Frontline with their premium tanks to make a load of credits. Now you're going to have to be playing against tier 9 vehicles if you want to do so at the same time.
The mode economy will let you earn credits in tier 9 vehicles.
The mode economy will let you earn credits in tier 9 vehicles. Well, I can tell you that you won't be making very many credits if you use 3 premium consumables in your Rheinmetall Panzerwagen and you aren't pre-purchasing them. That'll cost you 60,000 credits there. You're not going to have many bonds for very long if you use Event Directive. And irrelevant of how good the economy naturally is inside Frontline, you're not going to have credits for very long if you play like that.
2021 will open new horizons for large-scale battles. There will be cool-headed tactics and fierce attacks, combinations of allied reserves and enemy counter-reserves.
Sure, I'm looking forward to that.
Attacks deep behind enemy lines.
There always was.
Unexpected help from seemingly defeated allies.
Always
you will
was.
be able to try all this very soon. Fight, complete Battle Pass and Frontline, and share your feedback with us. Good luck on the battlefield.
All right, so once again, if you want to see Wargaming's full channel without my terrible commentary, then you can find it in your different regions. And Frontline will be starting for 1 week on August the 16th, so don't miss it. So with regards to the amount of Battle Pass points that you're going to earn from playing this game mode, yeah, it looks like it's going to be really good for the players who finish in the top 5, getting 25 if they manage to win. But let's be honest, most of the time you're either going to finish 6th to 20th or 21st to 30th. And considering how long the Frontline battles take, which can be literally half an hour, the fact that you're only going to get 0 or 5 Battle Pass points if you don't finish in the top 5 on the losing team, that's going to be way slower than just playing the regular queue of World of Tanks. Luckily, you will get Battle Pass points for breaching through each of the frontline tiers, as well as getting some directives that you can use on your tanks, allowing you to earn 280 Battle Pass points when you reach tier 15 in Frontline. So it will definitely be worth logging in and playing a game or 2 each day for that week if you want to try and progress your Battle Pass. So to conclude, let me talk about the winners and the losers of Frontline 2021. Firstly, the winners. Players out there who want to be able to grind through their tier 9 tanks. Sure, you're going to have to wait for probably at least halfway through the battle before you can play your tier 9s, but if you can get one of those very long, drawn-out games at the end, then there'll be a good opportunity for you to earn a lot of experience inside Frontline if maybe you don't need credits anymore. However, there's no doubt that this is going to affect the matchmaker during Frontline because there will be less tier 8 and tier 9 tanks inside the regular queue, and so I expect there's going to be so much tier 10 only matchmaking for that week that it will probably be not a good time to play any of your tier 8, 9 and 10 tanks unless you absolutely love tier 10 only battles. And the biggest losers will be those of you out there that just wanted to play tier 8 tanks if that wasn't complicated enough already. Now, if you only want to play tier 8s, then towards the end of the battle, there will be tier 9 tanks and there will be overpowered tier 9 reward vehicles like the Concept 1B grinding through against you. And you're probably going to have to fire more gold rounds when we think about it. It was one of the best things about Frontline, was not feeling the need to fire high penetration premium ammunition because everything that you were against was tier 8. Yeah, good luck trying to deal with a Moisian in most of your tier 8 tech tree tanks without dabbing that 2 key and loading the gold. It's very interesting for me that Wargaming with Frontline would be testing combining 2 tiers into it. why didn't they just try and make a test for the first one of Frontline where it was going to be tier 9 tanks only? That could have been interesting to see how it went. But the saving grace, if you absolutely despise the idea of tier 9 tanks being inside Frontline, is that Wargaming are presenting this as a test, and so I thoroughly recommend you give your feedback to them if you absolutely abhor the idea of having to play against tier 9 and with tier 9 tanks, and you wanted it to be a tier 8 only credit grind fest. And I want to make a final mention to the changes in the combat reserve system. Wargaming clearly feel that certain reserves are too powerful on certain tank types, and I don't think it's honest of them to present the changes that they're making in the way that you're going to be able to play the tank in your way and you've got more choices to be able to make, because really you don't. And if there's one piece of feedback that I would give, it's that Wargaming, not all tank destroyers are the same. Some are super heavy kind of tanks, some are more sneaky tanks. Let the Borsig have the Sentinel, but come on, don't take away field repairs or arguably inspire from something like a Jagdtiger 88 and 8015, or even a Turtle. At a time when you seem to be pushing roles inside ranked on the vehicles, the last thing that I really wanted in Frontline is for you to be telling me how to play my tier 8 premium tanks as well, or at least limiting the way that I can play them. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. That is Frontline 2021. It's not exactly the all-round improvement that I thought there was going to be to the system, and I'll be very interested to see what the community thinks about having to play with and also against tier 9 tanks. Anyway, ladies and gents, that was it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments what you think about all of Wargaming's Frontline changes. Do you think they're taking one of your favorite game modes and changing it too much, or do you think that you're looking forward to being able to play your tier 9 tanks in Frontline as well, and your objective was not just to grind filthy loads of credits? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.